And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I am here covering the Rowdies with my usual partner, Carlos. How are you doing, Carlos, who is wearing his sunglasses in a bid to get his new character going, I've heard.
Yeah, James, I'm prepping. You're talking to the newest contestant on the Georgetown University Bachelorette. Be there next Monday in the ICC auditorium. Very formal. We got the tie on right now, as you can tell. I'm tired of this.
It was long-lived.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. More importantly, we're doing well here in DC. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. Been in like the high 60s. The sun's been out. It's been lovely. It's been a little warm at times, but we're doing all right. I'm excited to talk about the game from this past week. We'll get to that in just a little bit because there was a lot of stuff going on there. Lots of goals. So my kind of game. Other than that, James, it's a lovely, lovely time up here in DC. We're coming up on graduation. It's time for me to be a real adult soon. I have to pay taxes and stuff and, enter the abyss that is the job search. So anybody's hiring, looking for like anything to do for a little bit. So hit me up. I don't know. James, more importantly, what's going on with you? How's your day going in sunny, I assume, Tampa, Florida?
You are correct about the sunny. It is definitely very sunny out. I can barely open my eyes. I need those sunglasses. If you could send them down real soon, that'd be nice. But as you said, there was a real good game for the Rowdies this past weekend. In fact, on Thursday, for whatever reason, we went down to South Florida and beat the Miami 5-2. So that was pretty dang good, I will say. Yep. In the RBLR standings, I finally got my first point. That's right. You can call me James, the certified soccer expert.
Yep.
I am so good at predicting scores that I have got one single point after 5 games. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate all your applause that I can definitely hear. But actually, it is 2-2-2-1 with me in the last place for the RBLR Cup standings. So I am finally on the board at least. Now, I will have a chance to get higher on the board because we have a game to preview coming up this weekend at Al Lang versus El Paso. If you are in the Tampa Bay area, you should definitely get there. And I also want to tell you, remember, May 4th at 4 p.m., folks. May 4th at 4 p.m., we will be having our first watch party at Berry House. The Rowdies will be going to Memphis to take on that team. And again, it will be at 4 p.m., so that should be good for everybody to get out there a little early. And also either get home if you would like, or maybe if you want to stick around, it is a brewery, of course. So they have very nice craft beers and you can stay and enjoy them with us. Yeah. Now, Carlos, we've got some stuff.
Yeah, it's Ebor. Like, what are you doing? It's game's over by 6. I mean, there's stuff to do around there. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's 10 p.m. and it's a crowd and you don't remember what happened that night. It's a good time. What are we doing?
Exactly. I like that attitude, and that is the way that everybody should look at it. Now, Carlos, we do have to get into this recap, but beforehand, I just want to say please like and subscribe to us on YouTube or any other major podcast platform that you use. And of course, please follow RBLR Sports on social media such as Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you are at RBLR Sports. Now, Carlos, let's get into that quick recap if you could get us started.
James, it would be my honor. Your Tampa Bay Rowdies started as per usual with Farr in goal, Jordan Doherty, Lasso, and Guillen in the back with Manjoma and Bodily sitting in front of them as those wing backs. Hilton and Crisostomo sat between them as your central midfielders. And then up top you had Cal Jennings, Arteaga, Joshua Perez continuing a good little streak he's got going here. And another start for him. Good for him. Miami traded Ben Mines and also Ben Ofimu for Danny Barbier and Roberto Molina from Indy. It was pretty last second, actually. It kind of came in like maybe the day before the game started, right?
I think it was the day of, but either way.
The day of, yeah. Anyway, so that's a note there for Miami's team. A little bit of a switch up from, the team we talked about going into that game. A couple players to note there. First half started pretty slowly, but it got going with some back and forth chances, and it wasn't very long until the Rowdies got on the board in the 20th or so minute. ended 3-0 before halftime. And I'd love to go through these goals in a little bit here because there was a lot going on. Good time for your Rowdies. Not as much of a good time for the 50 or so people in attendance that were rooting for Miami FC. Halftime 3-0. Then each team added 2 more goals. The game finished 5-2. James, I like how you described this game. Pretty wild! ! Chaotic for sure, but a fun one to say the least. Charleston now leads the East. OC and Sacramento Republic lead out West. Charleston also, by the way, leads the league with 15 points in front of Louisville City and Detroit City, who lost and then did not play, respectively. Again, Detroit City having a pretty great start. Keep an eye on them. Rowdies are in 5th place with 9 points, just like Hartford, and Pittsburgh still struggling to get out of the bottom of the table. They sit out back with 2 points. Unfortunately, one of those 2 points was against us, but I digress. OC and Sacramento Republic have the same amount of points out west with 12 points. Monterey Bay, one of our next opponents, New Mexico, have 11. Sorry, Monterey Bay has 11 points, and New Mexico has 10 points. Switchbacks have 0 points, James. Good note there. They're not having a great time. Usually when you've played 5 games, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, James, and not as much of a tactician as you might be. You do want to pick up like a point or so, right? Every once in a while.
That's my understanding from, I will say I am a layman in terms of any tactics. I am no John Morrissey, but I think even he would say that.
Yeah, I think, not good, right? Not good if you're Colorado Switchbacks. 0 points in 5 games. Unfortunate for them. Whatever. More importantly, your Rowdies won 5-2 in a really, really, really fun game. James, I think it's time we jump into it and start talking about that game, yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. That first half, James, it was wild. Started a little bit slow, but nothing crazy, nothing to note there. Just pretty standard start. Then all of a sudden, the Rowdies started picking up pace. They were attacking, creating some chances, and it wasn't very long. It was the 21st minute it was Samuel Beek or Biek, who scored the own goal for Miami FC. Although I would give credit to Cal Jennings, whatever. It was a great cross from the wing. They go up 1-0. Next thing you know, Jennings gets another goal in the 39th minute. Bodily gets a goal right before halftime in the 49th minute, 4 minutes into stoppage time. So, yeah, Rowdies go in 3-0 up. A pretty dominating performance in that first half, James. Would you agree with that? Did you think we deserved that 3-0 lead? I would say yes. I think we outplayed Miami. They had a couple chances that we can talk about here in just a second. But what do you think about that first half?
Yeah, so I do think that the Rowdies probably deserve to be up. I don't know that it was necessarily deserved to be up 3-0 is my big caveat for that. I would say that the Rowdies obviously played very well. And I'll put it this way. We have been obviously in contact with Kartik Krishnaiyer. He was helping us last week in terms of previewing this game against the Miami, and to continue to follow up with him. I see, a lot of the stuff that he posts on his Substack, I believe it is, and then his own website as well, and obviously his Twitter, of course. So all of these different places, I have seen him talk about it. I have seen him quote people who have talked about it, and there were a lot of people from the first half, especially, who kind of took away the impression that this Miami team are just not quite up to the same level of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I believe the way that Kartik actually put it in one of his posts was talking about how he was reminded of, a lot of teams that play amateur teams in the US Open Cup, and that was kind of a gulf there. I will say that I think that this team from Miami are not looking the best at the moment. They have a lot more to put together than the Rowdies do. They obviously have a very big gap to make up with the turnover that they've had in the offseason. So that's not helping them any. And a lot of the players that they brought in are on the younger side. So you don't have the experience, let's say, of a Cal Jennings when he came in last year. You don't have the experience of a Danny Crisostomo who came in for us this season. These are veterans in the USL. They know how to play. That makes a big difference. And I think that with the players that Miami have who are their veterans, it's kind of hard to make up the gap for the players who are just really getting into their first games as a regular player at a professional top level. So yeah, that's kind of one of the big takeaways here. And I hate to say that,
Yeah.
but they just do have a lot more space to make up. Roberto Molina, when he came off the bench, one of the guys that they had traded for either the day of or the day before, or that's at least when it was announced, of course.
Yeah.
He looked a marked improvement between the player that he replaced and himself. But, still, if Roberto Molina is going to be your improvement, and this is no disrespect on him. It's not meant to be, but
Yeah.
that is saying something. He's not a very big name in this league, I guess, but he is still obviously a good player. It's just that I don't think if Roberto Molina is your USL veteran and you're so happy to have him on the field to help settle things, then it's kind of already in a bad way.
Yeah.
To get into the tactics just a little bit, I think that the Rowdies were naturally, something we do frequently, trying to gang up on the wings, especially something that I do when I can watch a full game and do a rewatch. I will try and take my own notes, and then afterwards, somebody that I already mentioned, John Morrissey, I'll go and kind of check my notes against him the way that you would check your notes on a math test against the answer sheet or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that I did pretty well. I will note one little caveat that he added for me was when the Miami was defending and they did not have the ball, their left back often was very high up. So I think that if you rewatch again, you will notice that the first 10, 15 minutes or so, the Rowdies were especially dominant going up the right side of our side of the field. And that would be obviously Miami's left side. So Cal Jennings did get a lot into the back there. You could see a lot of play from Denny Crisostomo along with Eddie Munjoma combining down the right. They would get a lot of chances that way, or at least, almost chances. So it would get to the point where they were almost creating a chance, but every so often it did turn into an actual chance. I think that one of the big things came after our first goal. We had scored that own goal. And after that, I think it was just Antonio Nocerino, the coach for Miami, who kind of got sick of what he was seeing. And
so sad.
Yeah, there were some moments where the camera focused on him and I was thinking to myself, I'm just glad I'm not in his position, I guess. But
yeah,
also at the same time, he's a former Orlando City coach or player. So, from our perspective, who gives a hoot? But he went and subbed off Michael Vang in the first half. That was not due to an injury. That was just, he was sick of it, and fair enough. So my notes for that first period were Miami. My big notes, I had, more individual ones, but my big notes were Miami can't keep the ball. Hate to say it, but this team just doesn't look good. And obviously in big capital letters, own goal. So there you go. When he brought off Michael Vang, he brought on Manuel Botta. He's one of the Italian players that we had talked about and focused on before this game. And the trio of younger Italian players did have a pretty interesting role in this one, especially though Genzano and Botta. I don't think the other one actually did get on the field, but yeah, Botta was able to settle things down for a little while at least. And that is where I saw Miami actually start to creep into this game. So I do want to talk about the minutes, let's say 25 to 35 or so, give or take naturally. But it did look at that point when Andrew Booth was pushed up, he was allowed to roam. And this was actually something that they said on the broadcast. Ricky Lopez Espin, I think it was, who was doing the color commentary there. But he noted that Andrew Booth was allowed to roam after that substitution. And it was Manuel Botta who was sitting in a deeper position, kind of as a number 8 player. And then it was Gabriel Cabral who was playing as a true number 6 sitting in front of the back line. And I think that all 3 of those players did better in those roles than they had when Miami had started the game and they were in a different formation. They were creating a lot of chances and apparently doing something that they do frequently, which is looking over the back line and into the corners where, you're going to have a lot less players on the defensive side if the opposition does not have the ball. So to put that in better terms, that would be behind Jordan Doherty when he's a little bit out of position, behind Aaron Guillen when he's a little bit out of position. And I think it was mostly over to our right side. So that would have been, again, where Jordan Doherty and Eddie Munjoma tend to sit if they are on a more defensive play. And that was where, or from that position, they got in a lot of crosses, and a lot of those went to Frank Lopez. Now, unfortunately for Miami, obviously fortunately for us, Frank Lopez does not appear to be the best striker, and Jordan Farr appears to be a very good goalkeeper. I think that all of us would have at least known that part. But
it's pretty good.
If he had put one of those chances in, I think this game would have been different, although I would still hesitate to say that it would have been close, quote unquote close. However, I am worried a little bit about that part of the game, and we can revisit that a little bit more, but I want to get through the rest of it here. We were able to adjust for that, and then afterwards, we scored again, and we scored another one right before half. And at that point, the game seemed to be pretty out of hand for Miami, and they never really got back into it. In the second half, they scored, but we scored pretty close afterwards and restored a 3-goal lead. Then they scored again, and we did the same thing. So we had a 3-goal lead for more of the game than I think we didn't ultimately. And that just kind of goes to the point where really the biggest problem for this, I think, ultimately comes down to Miami does not have a very good defense at this stage of the season. But we were also able to use players who know how to get things done in this league. Manuel Arteaga got the 5th goal. It was a little bit cheap. He also should have scored almost a minute beforehand. Mm-hmm. So there were tons and tons of chances. Honestly, when Miami made a goalkeeper substitution because the first goalkeeper was injured, then the second goalkeeper came on, and he did. He had an incredible game. He saved probably 3 or 4, I thought, dead on goals. So the fact that he was able to keep a clean sheet, good on him. I would almost nominate him for man of the match just because of how close it was if he had been on for the entire game. Either way, it was not very close in terms of the chances that either team was able to create. I think it still would have been closer if Frank Lopez had his striking boots on, let's say. Unfortunately for them, and as I said, fortunately for us, that was not the case. And we were able to get it out of hand before they were able to even really adjust to that in any serious way. So, Carlos, that's kind of how I saw it. We were ganging up on them on the wings, and we were creating a lot of chances there, trying to get them all into the center and then spread out to the players that we have out on the wings. That would be Eddie Munjoma, who had a great game, Blake Bodily, who had a great game. Josh Perez was really helping out on the left side. I thought he was very impressive. Danny Crisostomo was helping out on the right side. Again, I thought he was very impressive. These are players that none of us really expected to rely on before the season started. And now, as a couple of games have gone by, we've seen them and they've turned out to be extremely important contributors. And I think that that's really important for us as a team to focus on when we still have all of these injuries. So I'm going to stop talking now. I've been going on for probably 10 minutes at this point. And Carlos, I'm going to turn it back over to you to see how you thought the game went.
Yeah, shut up, James.
Carlos, you say that to me all the time.
This guy doesn't stop yapping. Shared. I tuned out. I'm not even paying attention anymore. What were we talking about? Miami, whatever. Yeah, Inter Miami. No, I'm talking about wrong team. James, okay. I was gonna say I agree with you that Miami is just not a very good team, which could be true. I think talent-wise, they look like they could be a decent enough team. It's just not there yet. The product's not there yet, and even the announcers who are probably more familiar with that Miami team than we are said this was certainly far and away their worst first half performance of the season. They didn't look like they were ever really there, with the exception of those maybe 10 minutes that they had when they were really challenging Jordan Farr. But I think our early start really set the tempo. I was really happy with that. If you recall, Cal Jennings had a really good look. I'm looking back at the highlights just to fact check myself here. 9 minutes in, Lewis Hilton just sends a pass forward as he does. It's never really a bad idea to find Cal Jennings just running at the ball. seems like it works out more often than it doesn't. Nuts in, tries to pass it back to Gagliardi, and Cal Jennings beats Gagliardi to the ball, trips it over him, and it hits like that top corner of the crossbar. Easily could have been 1-0 9 minutes into the game. I think that set the tempo very early, that we weren't messing around. They came to kind of get an early start. Rowdies played with a little more intensity than we might have seen them starting in the past few games. That's something we've talked about in the past few episodes. A little bit of slow start, right? That wasn't the case in this game, which again I think is particularly impressive given the preseason-esque atmosphere of the stadium. I can't imagine it's hard to get that intensity up when the crowd is that kind of sparse. I never know how to pronounce that word. Someone please correct me.
No one correct him.
Yeah, that being said, that first goal was lovely. Blake Bodily whips in that cross. Arteaga dogs it out, by the way. It just comes back, grabs the ball. He has no right having, right?
I tend to agree.
He was on his knees, gets up and just fights for the ball, whatever. Plays it out to Manjoma. Manjoma whips it in. Own goal. Easy. 1-0 Rowdies. Again, it wouldn't take very long for the Rowdies to get that second goal, but those opportunities that Miami had, I don't think that's anything concerning for me on my part. I think it's kind of just the nature of the backline we play with. And we might be susceptible to moments like that where Forrest Lasso has to kind of track back. And he is not particularly speedy, we can say. So it's up to a guy like Guillen to be a little more on top of his game, to come back and be running stride for stride with a guy like Lopez, who is obviously quicker than a guy like Lasso. What a ball, by the way, from Gonzalo. Oh,
yeah, it was.
That was an incredible pass. Clearly, this is a team with talent, by the way. Like I think you kind of spent some time here kind of crapping on them, and probably deservedly so, because they had a terrible game. But there's certainly talent on this team. It's not like it's an entirely young squad either. There's a lot of guys in their mid-20s on that back line. The midfield, Andrew Booth is a guy we know pretty well. Frank Lopez is a pretty, he's 29. Striker with a bit of experience. Like, these are guys that it's not like we've characterized them as a young team, because they certainly have some pretty young players starting for them. But the majority of them are like pretty experienced guys, just not really clicking. Maybe not experienced at this level in the USL. It really is just not clicking for them yet. But that ball from Gonzalo is beautiful. Lopez, I think, does a pretty good job, with what he has there. He's just sprinting in, and he gets one-on-one, has to put a boot on it. I think Jordan Farr just positioned himself so well. Again, like you said, Frank Lopez didn't maybe have striking boots on that day, because it was literally just like a couple minutes later that he had a point-blank opportunity. Jordan Farr saves it literally right there. And the Miami FC commentators make a funny comment. They said something like along the lines of, Frank Lopez is going to see Jordan Farr in his nightmares.
And that is true.
I thought that was funny. But yeah, after that, I mean, there wasn't another real chance for them in the half. Certainly two big opportunities for them, but that was about it. Maybe I would agree with you that the Rowdies didn't deserve to be up 3-0, but we certainly deserve to be up, and I don't think that's a question. We kept pressing after they had their little run of opportunities. Blake Bodily kept pushing. He had a great game, like you said, put in a beautiful cross. Cal Jennings is just sprinting into the box, little header in. I mean, he is on fire. He knows where to be. He's kind of the perfect striker. He's not too small. He's pretty physical. He can move quick, and he just knows where to be. Obviously, he has that finishing touch. He is kind of the perfect striker, and he's been in pretty great form, to say the least, early on in this season, and obviously last season as well. But he knows how to create a play too, and that's what I want to mention on the last goal of the half that I'm looking back at. Cal Jennings gets the ball kind of just past halfway, the half field circle. Doherty gives him the ball. He gets the ball with his back to the goal, turns around, dribbles the ball up, finds a little bit of space, again, gets physical, bodies a guy off of him.
Yeah, the way that he was able to beat that man was great.
Yeah, and then finds a pretty wide open Joshua Perez, who could have easily laced it first time right there, and had a really good look from just outside the box, but smartly, let's go with that, smartly enough, he finds Blake Bodily streaking in by himself, and Blake Bodily has a real, the commentators mentioned this as well. They said Joshua Perez being really unselfish here, making the smart play, finding Blake Bodily, who has a great look at goal. But I think we're underestimating how tough like that look actually was. By the way, it's a really narrow like angle for him to shoot there, and he laced it perfectly, like bang into the top right corner, far post. No chance for Gagliardi there. It was lovely. The whole play was lovely. Karsten, hi Karsten, was my roommate. I just walked by in the back. He's a Bayern Munich fan. Bayern Munich's not doing pretty well, so keep him in your prayers. That's about it in the first half, James, right? Those were all our goals, obviously, I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to break that down a little bit because like there were so many different moving parts on a variety of these goals. That it feels like things are clicking a bit more here. And that transition from the midfield to the attack, or in some cases from our back line into the attack. Like it looked really, really good. It looked smooth. Again, players, like you said, players that we might not have thought we'd be relying on making plays. Joshua Perez kind of in a more attacking role. Kind of, he was on that left side a lot, but it seemed like he was a little bit all over the place, maybe having a bit of freedom to move about there, just above the midfield, but just below Cal Jennings and Arteaga. It looks really good. The product looked good in that first half. The second half was weird. We can talk about that a little bit more, but like, I don't know if you want to jump into the second half specifically a bit here, because I mean, Miami FC obviously opened with a pretty nice goal, actually.
Yeah.
It was Andrew Booth that got that pass in. Who scored the goal? Let me fact check myself. It was Gonzano. Yeah, Gonzano got the goal. He had a pretty great game. He might have been one of the lone bright spots for Miami.
I think he has a good future ahead of him somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavlianes had that really nice goal later on too. Kind of a fluke, like a great goal, but kind of a fluke in the flow of play. Miami might have had some momentum here early in the half. They scored that in the 47th minute. Oh wow, like this early in the half, like maybe there's a game, right? There wasn't. It was like 2 minutes later that none other than Cal Jennings himself gets back on the score sheet. Again, lovely play. It was a counterattack. Joshua Perez, again, a guy that you didn't think might be carrying the team a bit on his back this season, sprinting up the field on the counterattack, has Blake Bodily on his left to make a pass. Bodily drags a Miami defender with him, and Perez puts in the perfect ball to Cal Jennings, and it's 4-1, right? Yeah. That second half, James, what did you make of like that start? Is there something to talk about here, like with the Rowdies, or is this really just kind of I think a 5-2 game is kind of by its nature a little bit fluky. Like there's weird goals and weird moments in there. There's something to take away from the Rowdies' performance, like in how that started, or is it really just kind of up to a weird game?
Carlos, you used the exact word that I was going to use for the second half, and that was a fluke overall. I mean, the goal itself, yeah, that was a fluke. And I think both teams came out of halftime and they were I think that both teams came out of halftime and they were already thinking about getting off the field at the end of the 90 minutes. The Rowdies especially I shouldn't say that. Miami's defense especially seemed to be thinking about when the game would be over at times. And
Imagine Gagliardi. He looked ready to go. I'm not saying his injury was like not real or anything, but like,
but at the same time, yeah,
I would take like the most minor like knock and get out.
Yeah.
If I'm conceding 3 goals that early, obviously 4 goals, and we'll talk about that 5th goal if you want here in a second. But I think that 5th goal was kind of the very characteristic of what would happen in this half. What happened this half?
Exactly.
Cagliardi coming out to clear a ball and just totally whiffs on it, like he's striking out in kickball or something. And Arteaga has the easiest goal of his life, probably. Yeah, keep going with what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt you here.
No, that's okay. You are on the same path as I was, because I just generally think that the second 45 are not really indicative of the game overall. I think by that point it was mostly put to bed. Even when Miami had got themselves back into it, as you said, it was 3-1, it was 3-0, and then we scored almost right afterwards. So we restored that 3-goal lead. And I think by then Miami especially like I said, in the defense, put their heads down, and it was just, well, this is going to be a shit game. That's how this is going to go. Credit to Genzano, credit to Alan Gavilanes. They were both very active, and they continued to try. They did not put their head down. I think Roberto Molina, when he came on, I think that he was active and he continued to try. Give them credit, but yeah, the game was already over by that point. The damage that needed to be done already was done, and that came from in the first half when we would try and get them central, and then we would take our play actually out wide and play it to Manjoma or Bodily or someone who was near them, and we would create those chances. I don't think that we even needed to do it quite that skillfully in the second half. It was, I mean, I don't even remember how many chances we had in the second half, but the 83rd minute, the 85th minute, the 88th minute are all chances that I have written down. And that was after missing, I think, 2 or 3 because I was still writing from one of the prior chances. That's the downside of having to actually write it down instead of typing on my phone, because on my phone, I know where most of the keys are, and it's easier to do than actually handwritten. Either way, though, yeah, I think the second half is not really indicative of how the game went overall. I think the 3-0 would have been a perfectly fine scoreline, maybe even 3-1 if we're being generous here, but so it goes in soccer. And I do feel unfortunate. I do feel bad for a couple of the players out there. They had unfortunate nights. I think Gagliardi is going to look at himself in the mirror and say that he probably could have done better on some of those goals. I think that he will also say that it's not his fault that it was 5, that they had conceded 5 when he went off. Genzano, as I said, Gavilanes, as I said, Andrew Booth, I've seen him have better games with other teams. So he's the veteran here. You're probably going to be leaning on him a little bit more than maybe he would be ready for, but there's only so much you can do, I guess. And I think that the Rowdies were just a much better team on the night, and we were able to overwhelm them. The only other thing that I really wanted to harp on was, we talked about this already a couple of times. Usually when we play the Miami, we play them in FIU's football stadium. This past game, we played them in FIU's soccer stadium. It was a manicured field. It actually looked nice. It was wide. It was perfect grass. It was all that kind of stuff. And it was Kardik who pointed out that the reason that they don't usually play at the soccer field at FIU is because it is not of the proper size for USL championship teams. So they play at the football field most of their games, but I believe there was a conflict for their schedule and they had to move to the soccer field. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think that we have any say over this in the future, but if we could play all of our games at that field instead of their terrible football field, that'd be great. I know that the crowd still wasn't great overall, but it was better than it was in the football stadium because the football stadium is so cavernous. You can barely even see people there. So I think that really helped us. And the fact that our next game is coming up back home, we can continue to build on these patterns. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I think that that's all very positive for us.
I think Better is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
That's probably fair too. That's probably fair.
Good Lord. Yeah. Okay. Like it was a college stadium, obviously, which is fine. Like as it's plays, and I think it's fine to play in a stadium like that every once in a while. But there was even then, it still wasn't a particularly great crowd for a college soccer stadium, and it was quiet, and you could see the other college athletics teams practicing on the practice fields next door, in the background. I love the field way better than FIU's football stadium field, but it was weird. And again, I'm impressed with the players. I think that takes some character to rile themselves up and go in that intense into a game where you walk out, you're hyping yourself up, and you walk out into the field and there's that crowd, and you played in better atmospheres when you were playing in college. It's tough to actually hype yourself up and go out like that and play in front of that kind of atmosphere. Literally Georgetown on a Tuesday afternoon had I would argue a better atmosphere for its men's soccer team than that Miami game. It was just I know they're in a weird situation. I know Inter Miami exists. It's tough. It's really kind of frustrating to see that in the USL. But that's a side note. We could go on about the state of Miami FC for a very long time, I'm sure. More importantly, this is a Rowdy show, and there's still a little bit to talk about, I think, in the second half, because like you said, Well, first of all, that Gaviglianis goal was actually really nice. Like, whatever. Like, I don't think there's much Jordan Farr could have done there. Actually,
No.
he got up really high. Actually, he's got crazy hops. And did as much as he can. That ball just dipped like perfectly. Wow. Yeah. Miami's second goalkeeper comes in later on, and Di, 24-year-old from Senegal, and had a great game. Like you said, Manjoma could have easily scored a goal on that free kick that Lewis Hilton whipped in. I think it was cleared out at the line. Frank Lopez later had another opportunity, whatever. More importantly, we could have been up like 5 goals, honestly, if everything went well.
Yeah.
Arteaga had just a point blank opportunity that was saved by NDA. It was a header. Great save from him. Sorry, that was still Gagliardi. I'm messing that up because then it was Gagliardi that comes out and makes that whiff whenever Arteaga gets that goal. Long story short, I go through some of those opportunities just by name, just to say that we could have been up a lot. Like 3 goals is obviously a lot, but we could have been up even more. Young Gabriel comes in later. Charlie Dennis came in later, made his debut for the team.
Woo.
Lovely stuff. Rivera came in the 65th minute, had a fine enough game. Ortiz came in later. I wish he came in earlier, to be honest. I mean, he probably could have gotten a goal if he was sitting in there for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we subbed in literally the entire bench, and we still looked good. Miami was checked out, obviously, by that point. But still, good to know that the backup guys can come in and put in great shifts as well. Miami probably had 5 minutes where they might have thought they had a chance. Like, they came out on fire. They came out with some energy after at halftime. I'm sure, they got a good talking to in the locker room. Like, all right, we're gonna go out there. Like, it's just, I think they genuinely for a little bit had some energy in them. They scored that goal. Maybe thought they had an opportunity for about 4 minutes until Jennings put another goal in, and it was 3-goal lead again. I think by that point, James, like you said, they were checked out. Gagliana scored that wonder goal 3 minutes later, and I don't think they thought they were back in it by any means. So yeah, great game overall for us. A little bit fluky, obviously. We've kind of used that word a little bit here, but also not. We deserve to win. We deserve to win by a lot. You look at the stats and they kind of back that up. We had, how many was it? We had 11 shots on target to their 5, 6 big chances. It's kind of a lot. We missed 3 of them. Again, I think most of those 3 missed chances might have been from Ndi coming in later on and making some crazy saves point blank. Aaron Guillen almost got a lovely rocket of a goal from outside the box. Forrest Lasso had 2 clear opportunities to head in a goal. One of them was saved. One of them went just wide. Those are just off the top of my head. I could probably, if I'm trying to recall fully, I could probably name 2 or 3 more that could have easily been a goal in that second half. Total shots were 24-6. This wasn't, I know maybe in that first half we could say, oh yeah, maybe Miami deserved a goal. Maybe we didn't deserve to score all 3 goals there. I think at the end of the day, full 90, you look at this game and it was yeah, I think this is a fine scoreline. I think it's, it was a little chaotic, a little crazy, but I think it's indicative of how the game went. I think a 5-2 scoreline. I think winning by 3 goals shows dominating performance, and I think that's what it was. There wasn't really an opportunity for Miami to come back at any point, with the exception of maybe 4 minutes when they had a little bit of momentum. Maybe you look at those 5 to 10 minutes in the first half where they had some good looks, but Lopez just couldn't put anything away. This was good. Obviously, we won 5-2. We scored 5 goals. That's what you want to see. It seems like it's kind of clicking a bit more there. Nice to bounce back after that, kind of disappointing result against Pittsburgh. 0-0. That's what you want to see. And Cal Jennings has 4 goals in our 5 matches. Arteaga has 3 goals in our 5 matches. Bodily has a goal. Doherty has a goal. Joshua Perez is playing well. Things are clicking. So I'm pretty happy with how things are going, James. You put in a question in here to talk about here. Is this a turning point? Look back at the Rhode Island win as well. We had 4 goals. That game was also a little fluky, as we've talked about in that episode. Would you call this a turning point, James? I think, honestly, I don't know if there's much to turn from yet. It's still pretty early on. we look good and things are clicking. I think we're just kind of trending in the direction that we knew we should be. We should have been. Yeah, maybe just a slightly later start, 5 games in, than we wanted, but it's happening, and I think we're trending in the right direction, obviously.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The only reason that I say that it could be a turning point here is that our upcoming games actually look kind of favorable. So we are going to get into this game, obviously, when we do our full preview. But Tampa Bay this weekend hosts El Paso. Again, you should be there if you can be. I don't know how much I'm spoiling our preview by saying this, but El Paso are not doing well right now. So that is beneficial to us. The next game after that is against a better team, not the strongest team, but we are still at home versus New Mexico United. So that's pretty good. Following that, we are away to Memphis. That's the game at 4 p.m. May 4th at 4 p.m., folks. May 4th at 4 p.m. But I think that it could be a turning point because we can build off of this momentum with the upcoming games that we have. And that's what I'm really hopeful to see. Also, Charlie Dennis coming back is really good for us. So I'm hopeful that Charlie Dennis is just one of a couple of players that we will see return in the upcoming weeks. But obviously, we do not know at this point who that might or might not be. So with that being said, I do want to turn to our man of the match now, Carlos. And for you, who was that this week?
I think I have to go with the easy choice for me is Cal Jennings, because he had 2 goals officially. I, being one of the co-hosts of this podcast, I'm going to give him the 3rd goal because I can make up stats as I want.
There we go.
That own goal counts as a Cal Jennings goal on this podcast, so he had a hat trick that game. So good for him. One of the few Rowdies hat tricks in modern history. Congratulations, Cal Jennings. Yeah, he just had a great game. Obviously, he was in the right places at the right time, found the ball, finished the ball. Great finishing touch on him. And could have had a 4th goal, again, because I'm counting that first own goal, with that shot that, just barely clipped the crossbar. Yeah, he had a great game. It's hard to not pick him when he scores goals like that, and he gets in the right spot and he's fighting for every ball. He is a dog through and through. And I think I could use that term for several of our players, and that's good to know. Special shout out to Joshua Perez, who was on the bench in the USL Team of the Week this week. Cal Jennings was on the USL Team of the Week. Joshua Perez had a fantastic game as well. I just keep giving him props because he is someone that I had little to no expectations for this year. And it has proven to be pretty important in the last few games. So shout out to him as well. But Cal Jennings is my man of the match.
Yes, my man of the match was actually between the person that I chose and Josh Perez. I know that Josh Perez had a great game because my own notes included the 2 assists and then a should-be assist, one of the chances that we had that was not put in. And he also was this close to having a goal. Anyone not watching, my fingers are very close. He hit the post, and that would have been, he definitely would have been on the team of the week as well if he had done that. So it was between him and the person that I chose, who was Blake Bodily. Blake Bodily was my man of the match because A, goal, B, assist, and C, yeah, he was listed as, again, by multiple outlets. This was something that I eventually got to in my own notes when I went back and did everything, of course. But I only say that to say that it was backed up by so many other people that Blake Bodily looked absolutely incredible in this game. And I think that he is doing a little bit of the player from last season that we had come in from New England Revolution, Ryan. Oh God, what's the name? Not.
You blanking?
Ryan Spalding.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you, producer Eureka, for helping me out in that moment of trouble and trembling.
How could you forget Spalding's sanity?
I know. I think that we have a potential new version of Spalding sanity with Blake Bodily. He has looked amazing. Apparently, of course, we know that, he had a very good preseason. So if he's carrying that over into the regular season, that of course means great things for us. And I think if we can get the right side to be just as dangerous, I really think Eddie Manjoma did have a very good game. And that's up between, him and a couple of other players who have not played that role very much. So we have the potential to be very deadly going down the wings. And Blake Bodily looked so good in this past game that I had to give it to him. So that is my man of the match, and that will do it for our coverage of the game versus the Miami. But folks, if you're wondering, coming up here, what are you going to do all of the weekends coming up in May? Are you trying to make all of your plans? Because we've already got one of them for you if you live in Tampa or anywhere near it, in fact. On May 4th at 4 p.m., that's May 4th at 4 p.m., make sure that you get to Berry House off the Ybor Strip and go see the Rowdies play versus Memphis. Again, that is May 4th at 4 p.m. We will be having our first watch party of the year. And Memphis is playing on a terrible field, so we gotta go and cheer the boys on, even if we are not going to be in Tennessee all together, and then they can feel that energy from us because we will all be concentrated in one place. I believe that's how it works. There is definitely a scientific paper somewhere that says something like that. So please, folks, join us at Berry House on May 4th at 4 p.m. Carlos, let's get into one of the games that happens before that. This one versus El Paso on Saturday.
Yeah. May 4th at 4 p.m., by the way. There's something happening in Ybor. I forgot what, but keep that date in mind. Yeah, we do play a team, and they are located in El Paso, and they have a wacky name. They're called Locomotive. You've probably heard of them before. And they're playing at Al Lang Stadium this Saturday at 7:30. You should absolutely pull up. It's going to be a fun time, as it always is in Al Lang. Let's jump into El Paso. While we've improved, El Paso only has 1 point. They're not very good at soccer. They drew against Monterey Bay in their first game. They've gotten progressively worse since then, with their last game being a 3-2 home loss to none other than Oakland Roots, who are not a fantastic team themselves, by the way.
Nope.
They play something of a 3-1-4-2 formation with my boy Jamali Waite in net. Tony Alfaro, Bolu Akinyode, and Noah Dolan Meyer in front of him. Liam Rose sits in front of them with a recent attacking midfield of Francisco Navarez, Arun Basulievich, Eric Calvillo, and Lucas Stauffer behind Justin Dillon and Amando Moreno in front of them. Also to note here, Tumi Mushobane has also started 3 games. This is always my favorite part of the podcast, when it's how many names can Carlos butcher in a span of 30 seconds. Moreno has 3 goals, while Dillon has 2 assists and 1 goal. No one else has an assist. They just don't really create a lot. To be honest, it's not a very good team. Yeah, they've only scored 5 goals in their 6 games. I guess it could be worse. You could be Colorado, who scored 1 goal in 5 games, by the way.
Yeah.
So I guess not the worst, but pretty close to it. Yeah. Chances will likely come from creation in their wide positions, while Stauffer leading that stat as of now. This is a game, like we've said before, kind of like Pittsburgh, where 3 points absolutely matter. I would say even more so in this case, because, this is a team that is very obviously bad, like Pittsburgh, but we're playing them at home. There's no reason to drop points here. At least with a game like Pittsburgh, we have Pittsburgh on the home leg at some point later on this year, and we can take some points from them. Then at least this is a time where Western Conference opponent, we only play them once, and they're in terrible form, and they're coming home to Al Lang Stadium. It should be 3 points. We absolutely need to take those because, again, like we've said in the past, you don't want to be looking back at games like that Pittsburgh game or like this game when we say those are missed points. We really needed that, and we could have easily been in first place with those points or something along those lines. Yeah. They also play Omaha on Wednesday night, by the way, Open Cup action, the greatest tournament in the world. So keep an eye on that. They're going to have to play against the Omaha. Why am I blanking on their name? Omaha Union?
Union, right? Omaha.
Okay. Yeah. Union Omaha. So keep an eye on them in that department. Maybe an upset looming for them. I don't know. I mean, it's the type of situation where it's like, do you play your starters? Do you not play your starters? Weekday game against a lower division team, but their starters are already not doing too hot. So I don't know. I think you put in some backups playing against Union Omaha, and I think they could come out with a win. Also in Omaha, by the way. So a bit of travel for them coming up this week, going to Omaha and then down in Tampa Bay, Florida this Saturday. Okay. Watch the Open Cup, by the way, side note. Let's talk about this game, though. James, how do we think this is going to go? I think I have an inclination of the kind of result you're going to go with based on what we've talked about here. I am going to likely follow suit. Do you want to start us off, or should I start us off?
Well, I'll just add a little bit here with the formation of things.
Please do.
The way that I have seen them line up is obviously it was written on the FOTMob app. That's where we get the notes for a lot of this, but it's 3-1-4-2. And the reason that it's 3-1-4-2 is because their two wingbacks in this case have recently been Francisco Nevarez and Lucas Stauffer. They seemingly will try to get very high up the field, almost acting as two wingers and allowing there to be not a lot less defense, but defense in different positions of the field, obviously. So, with that being said, it should be noted that the Rowdies did very well with a team this past weekend that is not in good form and tried to play their left back quite high up their left wing, allowing Eddie Munjoma, Danny Crisostomo, and Cal Jennings to frequently get behind that left back on our own right side. So I believe that we will probably have a couple of good chances that pop up in a very similar manner versus El Paso. Now, will they be able to take corrective steps to do something to prevent that? I'm assuming if you're a manager and you care about your job, you'll probably try to do something along those lines, but who can say? With El Paso, I could see them also dropping into 5 at the back. So that would be a game that's a bit closer to how we expected Pittsburgh to go. Of course, Pittsburgh didn't turn out that way. I think that with them being on the road, it's more than likely that El Paso is going to approach this a lot more defensively than they would have other games because they're already giving up so many goals at this point. There's not a ton of reason for them to continue doing what they're doing. Let's say that's just not working. So you at least need to try to switch things up and see if that gives you a better result. That's how I would approach it. And I don't know what that means for the manager, but that would be my approach. So I would expect to see Lucas Stauffer and Francisco Nevarez, if they continue to be the wingbacks, sitting a lot deeper in this game. However, more than likely, the two of them are going to have a bit of license to get forward, or even if they don't have the license, quote unquote, they will probably just have the desire to get forward and ultimately leave their positions every once in a while, which will provide us with an opportunity to get somebody in there. I expect that will turn into a couple of chances very similar to the ones that we had against the Miami. And if this game goes anything like that one, then we could probably see, I would say probably a good scoreline coming up here. Of course, this is a team that's not doing well. We are a team that appears to be doing well, at least on paper. And I also like our chances on home field with proper grass, wide field. We can spread ourselves wide after, trying to suck all their players into the middle like we did against the Miami again. And that is where I'm going to leave it before I say, Carlos, I've got my prediction ready. Do you want to go first?
Sure thing, James. I'm going to say we win 3-0. 3-0. Yeah. This team's not particularly great. They don't score a ton of goals. I think our back line is in great form. They won't let up any silly goals like they did against Miami. And I think our offense is clicking, so I don't imagine that will stop now against a team that's struggling to get into the swing of things. So I'm going to take a 3-0 result. I don't think that's like being too biased or anything either. I think it's actually pretty fair. I just feel pretty good about this, given the situation, given the context, given the amount of time we've had to rest. I don't think tired legs is going to be a problem. El Paso not only played a game this past weekend, they have to play against Omaha the day this podcast comes out. Tomorrow as of the day recording. And yeah, I'm curious how they approach the Open Cup game, by the way. I think there's pretty good odds for an upset there in favor of Omaha. But yeah, keep an eye on that game tomorrow or today, and we'll see how that plays out and affects their game this weekend against us. I just think it's all going to work in favor of us, and we're going to come out with a nice, healthy result along the lines of a 3-0 win.
Yep. I think that we're getting all signs pointing in that direction, Carlos. And much like you, I have gone by a 3-point lead in my score. I believe that it will be a 4-1 win to the Rowdies. Eureka has also pointed to a win, although he has not given us a 3-point lead because I guess he's just such a coward like that, Eureka. I cannot believe that you would do something like this, but a 2-0 win to the Rowdies is what he's going for. So I guess we'll leave Eureka with that and let him have his own
He's just a
prediction.
contrarian. He just doesn't want to go with what everybody else is saying. He's like, "Oh, I'm
Exactly.
gonna be a little different." You're not special, Eureka. Calm down.
But on Twitter,
I hate
I'm
these guys,
assuming
man. James talks too much. Eureka is like,
it's all coming out tonight from Carlos. But everybody on Twitter, you will see us reaching out for your guest predictions. If you have any, please let us know. We obviously love the interaction, and we would love to know which one of you thinks we are right or wrong. It may be Eureka is not the hipster that we think he is, but we shall see. Now, let's get into our extra time. Don't forget, of course, we have our first Tampa watch party of the year at Berry House, May 4th at 4 p.m. That's the last time that I'm going to say it this podcast, but I'll probably say it another 100 times between now and then. Carlos, I will turn it over to you for the next points.
Last week was Jordan Doherty's 99th USL Championship League game. This next week will be his 100th, 110 overall. That's fun. Good for him. He has been a trooper, and truly kind of an Iron Man in his time with the Rowdies. He has kind of a fun little career trajectory. Remember, he kind of came over just on loan for a bit. With Caleb Richards, if I'm remembering that right. He came on loan from across the pond, stuck around for a while, played a great season, both of them for us. Both went back to the other side of the pond, ended up in different areas. Caleb Richards still playing. I think he's in like the 5th division in England, if I'm correct. Jordan Doherty had a year in Ireland, was it? Came back to your Tampa Bay Rowdies and has stuck around since then. And he has been, again, an absolute trooper. It's been awesome to have him back here after we thought we had lost him. Truly has been a great pleasure and great company in this team. So good for him. I'm happy to see his 100th game coming up very, very, very soon. Last but not least, your Tampa Bay Rowdies will learn who they will be playing in the Open Cup in the round of 32 when we come in. A little later than is typical for us, but that's, I think, a result of the whole MLS Open Cup fiasco. Yeah, so there's I guess there's a perk for your Rowdies. We get to come in a little bit later. We'll see who we're playing. We'll learn on Thursday, and then we'll find out when we play and where we play as well. So we could be hosting, in which case you should absolutely be out at Al Lang Stadium, especially. I mean, always, like, regardless of who's playing, but I think even more so if it's like a lower league team. Like, I think typically people kind of get caught up in like, oh, it's a lower league team, like, we won't go, we're gonna win. I think those games are so special.
Those are great games to watch.
They're special games. They're fun games. And you get opportunities for younger guys, for guys that haven't seen the field a ton. So that's always really, really good as well. Lucky Kosana had his best game of the year when he came in and played against the Villages. I think he almost had a hat trick. He might have had a hat trick. I think he had a hat trick. Villages is another name now, by the way, so I'm forgetting who that is. But yeah, so be there. Brave FC. Eureka's on it today.
Yeah.
Eureka's on top of things. Good for you, Eureka. Brave FC is now the Villages, by the way. So that's a fun fact. That being said, just putting that out there, absolutely keep an eye out on who the Rowdies will be playing in the Open Cup. Again, they're coming into it in the round of 32. That's what? 1, 2, 3. Wait, hold on. Let me do math real quick. 32, 16, 8, 4. What comes after that, James? 2. What is that, like? You have to win 5 or 6 games? 6 games. You have to win 6 games to win the Open Cup.
There we go.
And get a spot in the CONCACAF Champions League, right? That's still in the mix.
It is.
So who knows? Rowdies could have a great run this year. I think it's been long overdue. It's been a bit since we had that run with that game against Seattle back in 2013. I think we deserve a bit of a good run. So hopefully that's this year, and hopefully it starts with whoever we play. Whoever we learn will be playing. Again, we'll learn this Thursday. Keep an eye on the Twitterverse because it's always where I see breaking news first.
Yep. We are recording during the first couple of games of this round of the Open Cup. And if you are listening when it comes out on Wednesday morning, there are more tonight. As you said, as you said, Carlos, we will see on Thursday of this week who comes out for the Rowdies, and I am very excited for that. But in the meantime, we want to say thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, anywhere. We are everywhere. There too, if you are. I am mostly on Twitter at this point, and my @ is at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
At Carlos TPA10. I don't know what I've been tweeting about. What did I tweet about? Oh, Georgetown has a team in the soccer tournament this year. I learned that yesterday. That's pretty fun.
Nice.
It's made up of a bunch of Georgetown alums. Plenty of great players in there. Yeah, keep an eye on that. Soccer tournament's a fun time. TST. It's like that 7-on-7 tournament that actually did really, really well on the, airwaves. I don't know. I couldn't think of a good word for that. Before we get ready to head out here, Eureka reminded me that it is an important time to remind everybody to congratulate James for his 150th RBLR Rowdies appearance, by the way. That's 50 more than Jordan Doherty for your Rowdies next week. So, James, kudos to you. Kudos for being an Iron Man on the RBLR Rowdies show and starting almost every week. You were out a couple times, but you know what? We won't hold that against you. No, I'm joking. Love you, James. Congrats for 150. And here's to 150 more. If I had a drink in my hand, I would absolutely put it up to the camera. I don't. I could run over to the fridge and grab one of these like really, really poorly tasting Bud Light seltzers, but I won't do that because it's not worth it. Congrats, James. James, speech. Anything to share with the people on your 150th appearance?
I don't have much to say, but I actually didn't realize that was the case. I will say that I am enjoying doing this. So thank you, everyone who listens. You're the reason that this even gets done at all. And we hope that you can join us because we are having such a good time on the podcast that, you should interact with us in any way that you can. So get on the social medias, get to our events. That's May 4th at 4 p.m. is one of those events. And if you want to hang out when we are at the games, please do that. I am obviously trying to get to as many home games as I can. There will be roughly a month period when I won't be able to be there for other reasons. But other than that, come seek me out. I am everywhere everywhere at those games anyway.
I'm everywhere.
I will hopefully see you in my everywhere presence at the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Omnipresent James Knowles.
Exactly. Now, please like and subscribe to our podcast. That is the other thing that you can do for us, and you can get the full experience on YouTube. We are also, however, on Spotify, iHeartRadio app, Apple, and Google Podcasts, wherever you are. We are there too. Now, for one more win.
We're in your walls.
And one more win coming up. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.